Great to hear the excitement in the room, and thank you all for coming out. I'm Michael Moore. I'm an advisor here at Wealthquest, and just wanted to say I'm a little bit disappointed because Mike here from Activate Brain and Body is not going to have you guys get up and do squats today, because when he came in for us, he literally made us stand up and do squats and some other things. But I think what you'll find is literally it's activate brain and body. So hopefully he'll give you some ideas on the science that he is using to discover how to help people maintain their mental and brain health as they age. So I know we enjoyed it. I think you'll have a good time with Mike. If you want to ask questions, that's great. He'll repeat them because we've got an online audience. Feel free to ask him throughout. If we can, we'll run around with a microphone for you. But welcome, and hope you enjoy the presentation today.
Great. Thanks for having me, you guys. I needed to be memorable. So here I am back because I made them work. So now it worked. It's great. That's great. All right. I want to make sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Mike Wealthquest. I am with Activate Brain and Body. Our mission as an organization is to help people make the connection between exercise and brain health. The things I'm going to talk about today, you guys, isn't really talked about in the exercise science world, which is where I'm from. So let's get to my presentation because I get really excited about it and I want to actually get through it. I was instructed, Mike, you must get through the whole thing because you have good information. I do have good information. Let's go through it. Yep, Wealthquest, that's right. Thanks for coming. When it comes to the brain, we tend to think about crossword puzzles, Sudoku puzzles, if we're interested in doing what we can to keep our brains sharp. Raise your hand if you follow what I'm saying. Let me give you some information. Can I give you some information? Two things, actually three things. There's nothing wrong with crossword puzzles and Sudoku. Keep doing them as long as you like them. I'm a big fan of doing things that I like to do. It makes it enjoyable. Make sense? We don't have enough fun in life. Have fun. Do things you like to and you enjoy to do. Okay? Now, with that said, if the objective is, if the focus is you're doing these puzzles because you actually want to keep your brain sharp, let me inform you. There are two challenges with crossword puzzles and Sudoku puzzles. One, your brain isn't optimized while you're doing it because your heart rate is not elevated. Now, I'm going to talk more about that here in a minute. I'll be very specific when I say exercise. It's not necessarily just walking the dog, although there's nothing wrong with walking the dog needs walking. And as long as your heart rate elevates to a certain point, then you're accomplishing what I need you to accomplish. So challenge number one with Sudoku puzzles and crossword puzzles is that the brain isn't optimized because typically we're not moving, we're not exercising. Okay? And then number two, there is a pattern with Sudoku puzzles and crossword puzzles. And guess what? Once you figure out that pattern, all that happens is you just get really good with crossword puzzles and Sudoku puzzles. It no longer does what you want it to do, which is to keep your brain sharp, to keep your brain dense, and build new neural pathways. Neural pathways are pathways between brain cells. Raise your hand if you follow what I'm saying here. Okay. Yes. So, if that's the case, okay, then what can I really do? Hey, thanks for coming. That's today's topic. Let's talk about it. So who am I and why should you pay attention to anything I have to say? My background is exercise science. It's not neuroscience. I was just talking to a gentleman here, am I right? Prior to Activate, we had a very large business. My business partners and I, we had 23 health clubs. We were part of a big franchise. I don't know if I already said that. anyways, June of 2018 or so, we moved those locations. We sold them to focus on a different project. Project Activate Brain and Body. And you'll find out why here in a minute. I want to introduce you to these people because it's less about necessarily what I know, but it's more so the people that are on an advisory board that are advising us on how to do this neuroscience stuff. Particularly the lady all the way to the right, Dr. Rana Schatz. I don't know if you know her. She's a local here. She's the head of UC Neurology. Marie Stoner and Dr. Monty, they work together at Jefferson University. Marie does brain health research for Jefferson University. Dr. Monty teaches traditional and holistic medicine. And then the other two guys on the left, they co-founded, here's a really good source for you guys to look up. They co-founded what's called the Functional Aging Institute. It's really interesting. What they do is they create education for the health and the fitness industry to exercise people properly as they get older. We're big fans of their work. They do a really good job. Now, with the help of these individuals, what we've extrapolated this plan, this multi-domain approach to brain health. Now, side note for a minute, this is not a talk necessarily about look how great Activate Brain and Body is and you should come and exercise with us. That's not what this is all about. I'll mention some things we're doing because I think it's interesting, but this talk is more about what can you do on your own. I will share with you a ton of things you can do on your own. I'll share with you what we're doing as well because I think it's unique and it's intriguing, okay? So we've extrapolated some information from a very particular study that I'm going to talk about here in a minute to help people, to help our clients build what's called cognitive reserve. This is interesting. Coming from the exercise science world, I didn't think this was possible. What is cognitive reserve? It's a 30-year-old neuroscience concept that basically says, based on how you live your life, you can literally build a reserve. Think of it like a bank account. Most of us are familiar with the bank account, right? That you can withdraw from as you get older to protect your brain. Isn't that fascinating? That's surreal. How is that possible? And how do I know that I'm right? Well, let me tell you the study where this came from. Here's another thing for you to look up next to the functional aging. If you take some notes, write down Functional Aging Institute, write down the nun study. It's fascinating. So I'll give you about a 30-second spiel on this. 678 nuns were asked to partake in brain health research. The nuns were asked to participate in research because the scientists wanted to find out, hey, can living a certain way, lifestyle, can that be as medicinal, say, as medicine itself? So who'd have better study than the nuns? I think that's how the conversation went. So when the nuns were alive, listen to this, when the nuns were alive, daily, they were being observed for any signs of cognitive decline. Monthly, they went through neuropsychological testing. Once again, the scientists were looking for any signs of cognitive decline while they were alive. As the nuns started to pass away, they were encouraged to donate their brains to research, and 90% of them did. Of the people that donated the brains, there were about 100 plus brains, about 20% of the total brains that were donated. The autopsy of the brain showed that the brains were totally 100% demented, as the study says. Full of tangles, full of plaques. In other words, if all you did is look at the autopsy of this brain, you would have thought there's no way that this nun could have known what day it is, done any daily activities of living, get herself dressed. Well, you would have been totally wrong, because if you looked at the data they had on these same nuns when they were alive, the data showed that they were totally 100% intact. How is that possible? That you have 100 plus brains, right, that showed no signs when they were alive. They were intact. In fact, this is Sister Bernadette. She was teaching into her late 90s, but the brain autopsy showed something different. And so what they looked at were these 5 lifestyle factors that contributed to these nuns building some sort of a reserve, if you will, which is the topic of our conversation. By the way, it doesn't matter what research or what book you read on brain health or whoever you listen to, you cannot get away from not hearing something about exercise and eating an anti-inflammatory diet and socializing as its benefit to the brain. Everybody on the same page with me so far? Everybody online have any questions? Nothing? I'm doing great. That's wonderful. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is this. I'm going to combine, like, what are these pillars, basically, of brain health? I'm going to combine 1 and 2 together. And I'll talk about why that's so significant. This is probably the most detailed I'm going to get about neuroscience that I need. If you understand this basic concept, you will have a very good idea of not only what we're trying to accomplish and what my main point to you guys today is as it relates to exercise. Hear me out. So we use at the facility physical activity as a way to access the brain. All of our clients get a heart rate belt. Let me tell you why. This is the specificity part. When it comes to the brain, moderate, intense physical activity is what's really, really good for the brain. So how do you define moderate? Somewhere between 65 and 75% of your max heart rate. How do you know what your max heart rate is? I'll give you a quick formula. Take 220 minus age, and then times 0.65, and then 220 minus age times 0.85, or I'm sorry, 0.75. That'll give you a rough range, okay? Now, 220 minus age, 220 minus age times 0.65. That'll give you 65% of your max heart rate. And then 220 minus age times 0.75 will give you 75% of your max heart. It'll give you a bottom and a top number. Everybody tracking so far? Yeah. So when you elevate your heart rate, hear me out, moderate intensity. And as your heart rate elevates, your brain, my brain, produces all sorts of growth factors that enhance cognition. I'm going to talk about one of those growth factors, and it's this one. It's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So you look it up. That's the third thing. Write it down. Look that up. It's fascinating. The fact that this is happening inside of your brain and most of us are completely unaware of it, that's what's crazy to me. And coming from an exercise science background, I was shocked. This should give you the biggest reason why you should never, ever stop moving your body. Yeah, buddy. Particularly close to that moderate intensity, which is why I mentioned earlier, because most of us, if we walk the dog, but the dog means walking, it's important, but we're not really elevating our heart rates much, right? You could be and it's okay if you are, right? Meaning if you're walking enough and your heart rate elevates while walking the dog, and that's okay. But if you're not, and you count as exercise, you need to put the dog away and then go for a walk. Okay. Now here's what happens. So when you exercise, moderate intensity, our brains, human brains, some more or less produce this protein. What is the significance of this protein? Two big things that BDNF does. One, it protects our brain cells against decline. Let me time out for a second. Your brain naturally has the ability to build this shield, if you will, to protect your neurons. Isn't that crazy? All you got to do is move your butt. All you got to do is exercise. All you got to do is move at moderate intensity. It's not hard. It's breathing a little heavy. It's not running out of breath. It's not hard. In fact, it's hard. You're working too hard. Slow down. So two things: protects brain cells against decline, and two, BDNF. It's like a fertilizer. It's like a miracle growth for your brain cells. It acts as an enhancement for your brain. Let me give you a book. The book is called Spark. Spark by Dr. Ratey, R-A-T-E-Y, R-A-T as in Tom, E-Y. In his book, he talks about a project he was involved with called Zero PE in Napier Rural schools. Here's what they did. They put kids in school. They put kids in PE before school for about an hour. Nothing special, just ran the kids, right? And then immediately after PE, they put kids in math, science, and reading and comprehension classes. And of course, they compared their test outcomes against the kids that did not do zero PE. Yep, and you guessed it right. The ones that did zero PE, particularly in reading and comprehension. What does that mean? That means I can read something and I remember what I just read and I can articulate it back to you. That's comprehension. They did 17% better compared to the kids that did not. You guys, that's the difference between failing and passing. If you would have told me I could get a 10% bump in my grades when I was in school, sign me up. Because I'm not doing anything different other than changing when I'm moving my body. Everybody tracking so far? Okay. So BDNF enhances cognition. Here's the challenge with traditional exercise. Although it's wonderful for the heart and it's good for your muscles, and you should never stop exercising. The challenge is if most of us go work out right now, we're going to do things we're already very good at doing, which is fine. Once again, it's good for the heart, it's good for the muscle. It just does not do enough to create these neuroplastic changes in the brain that we all would like reaction time, balance, focus, attention, processing speed, working memory. Sure. In order for those enhancements to take place, you've got to put yourself in a position where you're learning and moving. Make sense? When you move, your brain gets enhanced. But if you move the same way, doing the same things over and over, not only is it boring and you're more likely to quit, but you're also not creating enough, if you will, these neuroplastic changes in the brain, which is basically what we do at our facility, right? We exercise you, we do physical exercises, strength training exercises, aerobic exercises, and then we put you in a position where you have to move, you have to think, you have to process information, you have to remember stuff, you have to react to things. The neuroscience community calls what I just described dual task training. So if you, once again, Google or look anything up, look that up. Dual task training or dual task exercises. We call it the cognitive circuit. You stay consistent with dual task exercises, the benefits, as you see, are to the right. Okay? Now, let me give you some tips if you're not exercising or you're thinking about maybe starting to exercise. By the way, if you read the book Spark, you will have all sorts of reasons to exercise that have nothing to do with weight loss. It'll completely, what I would hope, reframe your reasoning for why you should want to move your body. It has nothing to do with weight loss, has nothing to do with strength gain, has everything to do with the impact that exercising has on the brain. It's fascinating. Okay? But let me give you some tips that you can do on your own. So if you're not doing any physical activity, start, walk. Right? If the basic thing, and it doesn't matter to me for how long you walk, start, and then over time, just increase the time that you're walking, right? Even if that means you're walking from your house to your mailbox, it doesn't matter. Just give yourself time to adjust. Physiologically, hear me out. Physiologically, your body will adapt to whatever stimulus you put your body through consistently. Once a month doesn't count. Consistently. In other words, the more frequently you can do it, the better off you're going to be. Am I making sense? So initially, it may be hard. I get it. Stick with it. Stick with it. Stick with it. It will get easier. How do I know that? Because just how the human body works. Physiologically, you adapt. Things get easier. By the way, cognitively, you also adapt. That process is called neuroplasticity. Your brain has the ability to learn. So to make it walking more dual task-like, start talking. Even as simple as what I'm doing right now, moving and talking, that's the simplest form of dual tasking, which is more beneficial than just moving. Am I making sense? If you get really good at walking, and most of us here probably are, all right, take it up a notch. Right? Let's start doing some stuff. Let's start paying attention to not just walking, but how you walk, moving well. Paying attention to your form, paying attention to your mechanics, because you want to move in a way that doesn't hurt your body. Am I making sense? Some of us may walk and it hurts our lower back, well, because mechanically you're all jacked up. That's why. And it could be because you got some injuries. I get that. Or it could be you're just so flippin' stiff. So what can you do? Just do some basic yoga, basic stretches, gym stretches. Right? So once you start improving how well you walk, pick up the frequency and the intensity at which you walk. Okay. Now, to make it more brainy, here's what you could do. Go for a walk, make it a moderate pace, 65 to 75% of max heart rate. And immediately after that, either one, learn something new, which most of us won't do. Like, it's not like we're going to go for a walk and then study Spanish, but I'm telling you to do it because your brain is optimized. Do it. Or learn to play an instrument, or download this app called Brain HQ, and you just play a bunch of brain games for 15, 20 minutes. Sounds good. That'll be enough. That's okay. That's the simplest thing we can do to take advantage of BDNF and other growth factors get produced in the brain as a result of physical activity. Now, if you get really good at that, now let's take it up a notch. Now go for a hike. Go for things where you really need to calibrate how you're stepping, where you're stepping, where do I position my weight. If you add elevation during your hikes, that makes it, of course, a lot more cardiovascular challenging, right? Don't stop stretching your body. Make sense? Now, what I didn't talk about is this. I mentioned body weight exercises on step 2. Like, start doing some resistance training, start doing some body weight exercise. The key is to keep it functional. What's the difference between functional and non-functional? Let me show you. So this slide to the picture to the left, everybody has been or at least seen a gym before, right? The picture to the left is a weight stack, right? So meaning you're sitting down, say I'm doing a chest press and you're just pushing the weight forward. That's not functional. Functional are any exercises that improve your daily activities of living. I need you to tell me, where is it in life where I sit and do this movement here?
At the table.
Right? Maybe. That we should. You're right. At the table, she says. I like it. That's right. That type of physical activity, although it's good to strengthen muscles, it won't do much for motor control, meaning balance, proprioception. Won't do much to better it won't do much for you to better understand your spatial surroundings, so to say, because it's not functional. That making sense? Compared to what you see a gentleman doing here to the right, he's using straps. It's a full body exercise. Literally every single muscle in his body is engaged, much like every single muscle will be engaged if I were to do this and that, right? That's functional. And so when I say start doing body weight exercises, what I'm talking about is move your body in ways that you move your body every single day, like carry things, push things, pull things. Those are really solid exercises, you guys, okay? Move along. Now, let's play a little game. Here's the game. The game is, I want you to experience what is dual task exercising really like. So I'd like for you to do is sit, don't face me, maybe sit and face each other, okay? But just keep your back upright. So if you're, yep, you guys get what I'm saying? Yep, face each other, keep your back upright. And then follow my lead here, okay? All I want you to do in a seated position, this is straightforward, you guys. All I want you to do in a seated position is pretend like you are marching in place. Just march. Move your feet. Yep, move your feet and your arms. Just march in place. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing to it. I need you to move your arms and your legs. Keep going. We're going to go for about 10 more seconds. It's a simple thing. There you go. Let's go 5. Keep marching. 4, 3. Good. 2, 1. Now, this was pretty straightforward. That was a straight physical task. What didn't require much effort, right? Cool. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Now, what I want you to do is you can do the exact same thing. You're gonna march in place. Except this time, as you're marching in place, hear me out. Before you start, hear what I'm saying. I'll tell you when to start. It's all part of your ability to pay attention to what I'm saying here today. It's all cognition. Hear what I'm saying. I will give you the cue and then start. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna march in place. And then you're going to count backwards by 7s from 100 silently. Backwards by 7s from 100 silently. Do it till you get to about 30s or so. Okay? Ready, set, go. Once you get to 30s, go ahead and stop. Okay, go ahead and stop. Now, some of you I observed, and you may have felt this, and it's okay that you did, that's totally fine, where physically, when it was just a physical task, you're good to go. Once I started adding a light cognitive load, oh, buddy, it slowed you down. What happened? You were robbed attention. You're right. The more it robs your attention, the more challenging cognitively that task is. What we found was this. If we put you in a position every time you come to exercise in that regard, where you have to divide attention between moving and thinking, we can enhance your ability to remember. We can enhance your ability to focus, short-term memory, not long-term memory. Concentration, your reaction, your balance, all of those things change when I put you in a position where you have to process information and think at the same time. Isn't that cool? None of the things we're doing, by the way, are new. You realize that all of this has been done. We just took it out of a clinical setting. If you go to occupational therapy, for example, if you ever have to go to occupational therapy, what are they doing with you? What they're doing is they're having you move and think. Okay, so first, Mike, I need you to take your left hand, put it here. Then I need you to take your right leg, put it here, right? And then I have to simulate climbing the ladder. Does that make sense? That's tough to do if you had some sort of a stroke. It's tough to do if you had some sort of a brain injury, right? What we know is that if we take that sort of training and we work with regular people that don't have a whole lot of necessarily cognitive challenges, they tend to benefit a lot more than those individuals that have cognitive challenges. That doesn't mean that the ones that have cognitive challenges cannot benefit. Everybody tracking? Yes? Let's move on. Now, at Activate, like we're just a lot more calculated with our clients. Like hear me out. You should never allow any personal trainer to ever take you through a workout unless they first understand your past medical history. 2, they need to understand your current kinesiology, which is how you move your body through space. And 3, like I have to have a direction of like, what do you want to accomplish as a result of exercise? If I don't know those 3 things, I'm throwing darts. Everybody is. Very, very dangerous. So we're very calculated at what we do and don't do with our clients. So every client goes through a really comprehensive physical and cognitive assessment every 12 weeks for us to understand, for clients to understand, are they tracking in the right direction? Okay. So this is a video that gives you a good idea of what does a dual tasking session at Activate look like. Now remember, because everybody goes through an assessment, everything is progressed or regressed based on your abilities, both physical and cognitive, okay? So it's traditional functional stuff. We got all the bands and the straps and the kettlebells. We just incorporate cognitive training on top of your workout program. So you'll exercise for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, right? And then we'll put you in front of our technology to play different brain games. Okay, we have clients in their 90s, clients in their 80s. I have people with rods up and down their back. I have people that can't stand more than 5 seconds at a time. The only thing that matters to me is clearance from your physician. That's all I need. As long as I have clearance, we're good to go. Okay? Any questions for me? Yes, question, sir. Who had a question? Somebody over here? Yes. Oh, what's your question, sir? State your name. What's your question?
Frank.
Frank.
Okay, you're talking about people with movement problems.
Yes.
What about the disease, specifically MS? And the legs being kind of shot as far as moving. That's it.
Yeah, no, that's
Have you read
the question. If I have MS, can I listen? You have to move, right? You got to do what you can to move. The challenge is move in a way that does not make inflammation more than what it currently is. Now, there's other ways to manage inflammation. Now, keep this in mind. If you exercise only once every 10 days, exercise in that regard will be an inflammatory event for you. The only time that exercise becomes an act as an anti-inflammatory, right, is if you stay consistent with it. Now, what's important is to do it in a way that doesn't hurt you, that doesn't injure. I am told, like we've got clients that have all sorts of different challenges. The only limitation would be not getting clearance from your physician or not having some sort of guidance for us to abide by. Other than that, we're good to go. And you and I can talk more about that later if you have more specific questions. Okay? Let's talk about, yes, sir. One more question.
One more question. I heard you say that if you exercise, that you really need guidance on how to do it. I exercise, let's say, twice a week at Planet Fitness. I do not have a personal trainer.
Okay.
Are you telling me that that's bad for me?
Absolutely not. I hope that's not what you heard me say.
Okay.
Absolutely not. You are 100, maybe let me get a bigger number, 1,000 times better off moving than sitting still. Move your body. What I'm saying is this: if your objective is brain health, there's a certain strategy, there's a certain protocol that you go through. The fact that you're exercising, that's great. At the end of the day, here's what you guys got to consider. Whatever your physical program is, whatever your exercise program, here's a really interesting question. How's it working out for you? Right? In other words, are you getting out of it what you intend to get, what you want to get out of it, right? And if the answer is no, then you got to question it. And that's a really good question, right? How's that working out for you? The only thing that the personal trainer will do is just make sure that you actually stick with it for a long period of time, right? Like that's one of the main reasons why someone would hire a coach, because they have a hard time staying consistent with it, right? In our case, it's also because they want to see change, they want to progress. We're very specific about progress, meaning because of the evaluations we gather every 12 weeks. Okay, but what I want you to hear me say is I need you to move your body. And particularly if the objective is brain health, move your body with intentionality, meaning 65 to 75% of max heart rate, moderate intensity if you can. Now, some of us maybe taking blood pressure medicine or something else that might keep our blood pressure low. At that point, what you want to go off of is perceived exertion. What you want to go off of is how hard am I exerting? So I need you to exert yourself to the point where you're breathing a little heavy, but not running out of breath, right? That would be equal to 65 to 75% of max heart rate, okay? Let's talk about relaxation, but in general, stress. Like stress gets a bad reputation. Part of brain health is managing the stress. Let's talk about stress for a hot second. Let me tell you something. If there is a bear chasing you, you need all the energy in the world. You need all the blockers that block pain receptors in the world to get away from the bear. By the way, you don't have to be the fastest. You know that, right? You just have to be faster than the slowest person.
That's right.
Think about that. Think about that. So the normal stress response, meaning if you are in danger, you get these hormones that get rushed into your system to get you out of danger. And then once you're out of danger, what should happen to all those hormones? Right. That's a normal stress response. If there is if you're crossing the street and there's a car coming at you, you gotta walk a little faster. And that's okay. So it's a little stressful, but it gets you out of danger. And as soon as you're out of danger, what should happen is all the stress. That's right. The challenge with stress isn't acute stress, it's chronic stress. That's the issue. The challenge with stress is all the other little things that stress us out. Like what? Consistently not sleeping well, or not getting enough sleep, having an irregular wake up time and a regular going to bed time. The foods that we're consuming might be something that it's causing all sorts of bloatedness. Maybe you're sensitive to some of those foods, right? The things that you drink, it's those things, the negative relationships maybe. Those are the chronic stressors. According to the Mayo Clinic, that stuff's bad for us, right? Meaning if you're chronically overstressed, those are the consequences. We all understand this, right? Let's talk about the solution. Well, one more challenge to consider. What's the connection between chronic stress and brain health? Well, chronic stress causes inflammation. Inflammation kills brain cells. That's right. I would say probably the root cause of a lot of challenges, health challenges, is high inflammation, right? So the question is, okay, so what can I do to better manage inflammation in general? What can I do to better manage stress? There's a ton of things. I'm going to give you 3 specific things where I would start with a client if they feel like they're stressed out. The number one thing I would address is your sleep. Right? I would take a look to see what time you go to bed, what time you waking up. Is there any regularity? And then let's get some rhythms. Let's get some patterns there. You need to do what you can to try to stay with the circadian rhythm as much as possible. Meaning sunset, you're up. Now sunset, you're down. Sunrise, you're up. Try to stay around those perimeters for a variety of reasons. Now, how do I know what quality of sleep I'm actually getting? There are so many trackers out there that can help you track that. And I'm a big fan. If you want to improve something, track it, measure it. Not all the time, just initially to give yourself some feedback, right? And then put some intervention in, put some tricks and some hacks, and measure it again. This is helpful. Right. Number 2, physically we carry our stress in our bodies. Oftentimes we feel stressed because we're so tight. All right, get a massage, do some stretching, do some yoga. That will help you calm down. That will help you relax. It's as simple as that. And 3, we all have heard of this. I bet you every one of us here have given this advice to someone where if somebody gets stressed out, we say, hey, take a breath, relax. Have you ever said that to somebody? Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what? We should follow our own advice. It's very effective. Yeah. So breathing, meditation, highly effective to lower anxiety, lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, so you can better manage whatever situation you're in. It's impossible to manage a situation when you're hyperventilating and your anxiety is up. Okay? So Headspace is there's a lot of apps. I really like Headspace. It's a great app to start doing some light guided meditation if you think you're not very good at it. Right? By the way, most of us think we're not very good at it, but the whole act of meditation is just focusing on one thing. And as soon as your brain goes somewhere else, you know what you do? You recognize that and you bring it back to center. That's all it is. Right? And the more you practice that, the more you can stay focused, the less you'll be interrupted, the more you'll be able to get done. It's amazing. Okay. Now, at Activate, we're a bit more tactful about stretching your body out. There's a whole different session on our menu called the FMR circuit. It's all we do is flexibility, mobility sort of stuff. Right? We use all sorts of different tools to get people greater access to certain ranges of motion. Otherwise, they might have a hard time getting into if they didn't have some sort of leverage, like a stick or a ball. And then before and after every session, we do breathing exercises. We focus on meditation. We guide you through it. Right, just the first 5 to 10 minutes. We turn off the lights. It's pretty cool. People get zenned out. What's fascinating is this: every one of our clients wears heart rate belts, so we can see their heart rates. And so as people start breathing, it's like clockwork. I mean, people's heart rates drop by 10 to 20%. Isn't that cool? And remember, when your heart rate drops naturally, you can breathe better. You can ration better. Okay. Let's talk about nutrition. I would say the biggest thing when it relates to food in general is find out, are there foods that I may be sensitive to that are causing me all sorts of belly issues, maybe causing some headaches, maybe causing some aches and pains. Okay. How do I find? It's a simple blood test. You can get it done and just avoid those foods, right? So for me, for example, I'm sensitive to sweet potatoes, bananas, right, and mushrooms. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of those foods. I don't think anybody has ever gotten heart disease because they overate on sweet potatoes. That's not a thing. But if I eat too many, it makes my belly not feel good. I get lethargic, right? And that's not a good response from a food that you eat. In fact, if anything you eat and it causes some of those negative responses, I'm going to check into see if that food is good for you, right? Now, from a brain's perspective, you got to keep inflammation down. We're big fans of what the Mind Diet and look up the Mind Diet. What does that have to say? Mind Diet is a combination of a hypertension diet and a Mediterranean diet. All right, so lower in sodium, higher for some higher quality fats, all the stuff that we already know. But if you do some Googling, you'll get some really interesting guidelines as far as what can I do on my own to help myself not only live well, but nourish my brain. Right? But the best thing you can do as it relates to the brain is figure out which foods you might be sensitive to and allergic to and just avoid them. Try to eat a diet that doesn't inflame your system as much as possible. Okay? Yeah, let's talk about alcohol. The question is, what about alcohol? Anything in excess is ridiculous, right? I mean, you take whatever 1 or 2 Tylenol might be okay, right? You take a lot, like that's not okay, right? So anything in excess is no good. 1 or 2 drinks, you're okay, right? Dr. Sanjay Gupta wrote a book called Keep Sharp. Great book, wonderful book. It's got all sorts of tactful strategies. In fact, at the end, that's what he leads to, like a 12-week program that all of us can do on our own for better brain and body, sort of say, right? And in the book, he talks about, hey, listen, 1 or 2 drinks, anything in excess is ridiculous. When they take a look at blue zones, right, those individuals where the average person lives 100+ years old, or 100 years old, most people, they smoke and drink like fishes, right? But there's something to it. Well, the question is, what do I consider excessive? It's not what I consider excessive. It's what the medical community considers excessive, right? So Dr. Gupta would say to you, 1 or 2 drinks a day are okay, is what he would say based on his book. That's right. So if you do anything less than that, you're okay, right? Depending on how strong those drinks are. That's right. Now, remember, the other part of it, I got to drink 4 margaritas. But the other part of it is, listen, be smart, right? If you know you're more likely to go for more than 1, if you have 1, then maybe you shouldn't have any at all. Maybe you should avoid it entirely, right? So how do I change what I'm eating? Like this is such a, that's probably one of the most common questions we get asked at Activate is, okay, I realize all this good stuff is good for me. So step one, are you aware that you even have that you have a challenge with food? Because if you're not, no one can help you with anything, right? So step one, understand, okay, yeah, I'd like to change what I'm eating, like actually articulate that. I'm not eating well. Step one, acknowledge that there is a challenge. Everybody on the same page? Step two, okay, then just list out some pros and some cons. What are the benefits if I do? What are the consequences if I don't? It's as simple as that. Hopefully you have a lot more pros and cons and get emotional. Right? And when I say emotional, my question to you is to ask yourself why at least 3 or 4 different times. Like I want to eat better so I have more energy. Why do I want to have more energy? So I can play with my grandkids. Why do I want to play with my grandkids? Because I don't want to be one of those granddads or grandmoms that has grandkids and can't get on the floor with them. And why is that significant? Well, because I don't want to feel old, or I want to stay independent. Like, I mean, but if you ask yourself three whys, what I'm saying is you'll get to the root of the issue pretty good. And that should inspire you. That'll motivate you to take some action. That's the idea. Okay. Then once you get a good list of pros and cons, my suggestion is you visit it as often as you can to remind you why you're doing this. Right? And then start with one thing at a time. There's all these different things you could change. If you're eating McDonald's, for example, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm not saying that's you, but that's what you're doing. It's really tough to say, from McDonald's, eat organic chicken. That's not going to happen. It's too much of a stretch. But what's the next alternative? Well, maybe pick lunch. And instead of McDonald's, go to Subway. Is it a better alternative? Sure. Is it the best? No, but it's better than, McDonald's. But the trick is consistency. So pick a habit, stick with it for, 20, 30, 40 days, however you need to, and then pick the next thing. My biggest advice to you when it comes to nutritional habits particularly is look at what you've accomplished, not how far you have to go. It's so daunting and frustrating and discouraging when you take a look, oh my gosh, I've got all this weight I want to lose, but my goodness, over the last 60 days, you've accomplished 4 or 5 different things. Nice work. Helpful? And I would say to you this, if you don't have accountability, if no one else knows what you're doing, it won't work. The clients show up because we have an appointment. If they don't show up, odds are they're going to get some sort of a message, phone call, something. Where are you, Miss Jenny? We missed you at your workout today. Get some accountability. And I would say the other one is get some sort of a way to, I'm going to skip that slide. I'm going to talk about it here in a second. Get some sort of a way to track progress for yourself. Scale weight isn't always a good idea. Maybe you track energy levels. Maybe on a scale from 1 to 10, ask yourself, how much energy do I have today? It's a 3. Okay. And just keep that number and then track it. Give yourself some sort of a way to track your own feedback, sort of say, right? So internally, we have all sorts of numbers we look at to give our clients an idea to see that they're tracking in the right direction. Okay. What I wanted to mention that previous slide, what he talked about is this: like we take nutrition very, very seriously because not only as it relates to the brain, but also to the body and to the heart. It's significant. So all our clients actually get 4 sessions to work with a registered dietitian to get them squared away. You need to work with someone that understands medicine, that understands supplements, that understands lifestyle, right? And put it all together to help you optimize and live well. Okay? Socialization. Dr. Gupta, in his book, the context of what he talks about, what I'm about to say is socialization. Here's what he says. He says, the older we get, he says, we don't do new things. We don't meet new people. We stop trying to put ourselves in situations where we're not very good at. Does this sound familiar? I'm 41, and I try to avoid some new things here and there. My wife is very social, and we should be getting to know other families. Mike would rather not. It starts in our 30s and our 40s. Here's what he says. The challenge is your brain responds to novelty. Your brain thrives. You build new neural pathways, new connections between other brain cells when you are in a position where you're learning something, where you're in a position where you're meeting somebody brand new. So if you stop introducing yourself to novelty, your brain cells die, is what he said. Isn't that crazy? In the context of socialization, just as simple as it is for you guys to actively pay attention to what I'm saying is enough to keep your brain sharp. Now, of course, it'd be nice if you add more to what I'm saying, then we can have a conversation. That's very, very, very good. Okay. So we do some interesting stuff with our with our clients, like 2 to 3 times a month. We do cool stuff. Next week, I'm gonna have an executive chef come into our studio. We're gonna turn the entire studio into a kitchen. It'll be fun. Of course, the foundation of what we're cooking is Mediterranean food. Everybody's gonna learn how to do meal prep using the Mediterranean diet. We take clients hiking, we go walking. The idea is we have game nights. The idea is we put clients in a situation where they have to communicate and talk. Pickleball, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, pickleball's great. Pickleball's great. The way that we promote you guys socialization as a group setting, we have a nice area for people to kind of come out and hang out with. And so what I'm telling you is this: it's not that Activate is great, but it's more so what are the things that I can do if I'm not social enough to get out of my 4 walls and go be social. Right? Are there clubs that maybe I used to be part of? Go do it. Sanjay Gupta would say to you, nice work. Okay. I'm doing great on time. That's amazing, Jenny. Look at that. I'm done. I'm done with our how about that? That's right. So Mike, you must finish. Hey, I want to open up for Q&A about any of the 5 pillars we talked about, which was physical and cognitive exercising, right? Stress management, nutrition, and socialization, or anything else you'd like to talk about. Yes, sir.
You touch on those nuns, brains. I mean, I know you said some stuff about it. I got a little confused. Like,
Yeah.
say they're like spaghetti or something.
So the question is, what's up with the brains that were? Yeah. So what's up with the brains that show that they were demented, but the data they had on the nuns when they were alive showed the data was straight. In other words, they weren't demented; they were fine. What they looked at, the autopsy of the brain showed that the brains had tangles and plaques, which are classic signs of the Alzheimer's disease, right? But when they compared those brains to the data they had in the nuns when they were alive, the data showed that they were fine. On a daily basis, they weren't expressing any signs of cognitive decline, right? And that's when they started questioning this whole process of, okay, is it possible to live a certain way that even though you might have genetic predisposition, even though there might be a hard life there, even though you may not deal with stress very well, but you can literally circumnavigate those roadblocks in the brain? The answer is yes. Your lifestyle makes a big difference. Yeah. Yep. There's one question about online, and then we'll come back to you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. This is from one of our online viewers. Does running on a treadmill and/or riding a stationary bike while watching a YouTube video where you're learning something new or a new skill meet your requirements of the exercise learning paradigm?
If you can teach it to someone else, right? If you can actually comprehend it, regurgitate it back, like, did you learn? I can tell you many times I'll watch something or I'll read something and you ask me, Mike, what did you just read? Good question. You go back and read it. I don't remember. I forgot. I wasn't paying attention. Am I making sense? So that's how I would answer that question. I'm sorry, the gentleman here had a question.
Talk about physical exercise in the brain.
Yep.
And
In the nun study, did they consider anything about the spiritual aspects of what the nuns were involved with, how much they did that, and how that affected the physical and the brain?
Yeah, that's interesting because in the men's study, like they didn't have like a facility like ours. They didn't go to a gym to work out. That's not what they were doing. They were walking, right? A lot. They were taking care of the grounds that they lived on. And that really speaks more to the stress management part of it. Most of the nuns, they pray, right? Most of the time, very meditative. So their stress levels were probably non-existent, and that's what the study talks about, right? Yeah. Yes. Question.
Taking into consideration the busy lifestyle of the American culture.
Yeah.
So our doctor says 45 minutes to an hour a day of exercise, but another doctor I follow says 10 minutes of high intensity. What is optimal? Because without losing 2 hours of sleep, I don't have an hour to find of exercise.
That's a really, really good question, right? Let me answer it like this. The best workout is the one that you're doing. It's the one that you are going to do. It's not the one that's a good idea to do. It's the one that you have the time to do, and not the one you'd like to do. So sometimes you only got 10 minutes. It's going to be a quick, hard 10 minutes. Let's go. Sometimes you're going to have 60 minutes. Okay, you're going to take your time. I'll tell you this. The trick is, how do I stay habitual? if you or when you take 5, 8, 10 minutes to exercise, it might not do much, but here's the biggest thing it's going to do: keep the momentum going. Because if you don't skip your 5, 10, 18-minute workouts, odds are you're not going to skip your actual workout when you have more time. That makes sense? Without getting into more of the exercise science part of it, if the objective is, I just want to get in the habit of exercising, what's the best thing I can do? It's what you're able to do. It's what you carve out time to do. I would also say, put it on your calendar, right? Treat it just like you do a dentist appointment, right? When you schedule one, what do? You try to navigate around it as much as possible. Sometimes you got to reschedule, right? There's a lady over there had a question. Yes.
Anything in the program in treatment and reversal? And what's the major difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
Got it. So the question is anything in our program? Everything we're doing is prevention. So the question is, if not preventing, then what?
Treatment or reversal?
Treatment. So we are not physical therapists, right? You need to get clearance from your physician, or maybe a physical therapist or a cardiologist. And we're fine working under any sort of parameters or restrictions that you may have. In fact, we have a couple of clients of ours that have had severe strokes, and their heart rates cannot be more than 150 beats per minute. We keep them at about 135, 138, as close as far away as possible. So I hope that answers that question. Dementia is an umbrella, right? So Alzheimer's is just one of types of dementia, right? There are other types of dementia, but Alzheimer's is the most common one. It's the biggest one. Yeah. Yes.
I have a problem with traditional exercise, like going to a gym.
You got it.
Or anything like that, okay?
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm very active. I'm in the woods cutting wood.
Love it.
I'm chopping wood. I'm a professional wood turner, so I'm making products on the lathe.
No kidding. It's
I'm
great.
always thinking.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at that piece of wood. I know what I'm going to do with it and get into it. So I'm working my brain and I'm still exercising.
Love it.
And I do other things too. But to go to the gym is so boring to me. My wife does it, and she keeps on saying, you ought to do that. I get more exercise than probably 90% of the people in this room, and I'm 82.
Yeah, well, first of all, the fact that you are that active, congratulations. That's really something. The fact that you're still able to do those things, nice work.
My brain,
right, especially with what you're doing. I would say this to you: don't ever stop playing athletics, sports, or working with your hands ever. Like there's nothing that we can replicate inside of our facility, as much as we try very hard, with what you're able to do on a pickleball court or with a chainsaw. I mean, like it's the amount of cognitive focus, right, and physicality that it requires. Now, with that said, what physical activity, consistent physical activity, like organized, let's say in our system, what we would be able to do is keep you doing the things that you're doing longer. Keep you doing the things that you're doing in a way that will minimize injuries as you get older. Because there are some things you have to be able to do. Like your heart needs to be at a certain level of strength, right? You have to be able to do some basic stuff, right? And you might be able to do it from a balance perspective, from a strength perspective, right? We know that if you can do certain things, not only will you live longer, but you'll live better longer. That's pretty cool, right? With that said, though, listen, you're 82, and what you've done so far sounds like a decent formula. If I was your personal trainer, all I would do is I would make sure that you can continue to do the things that you enjoy doing longer. And I know that if I can get you to keep up with your strength, your endurance, and your balance, right, and keep you cognitively intact as you continue to age, you'll be able to do those things, no doubt about it. Because remember, physically and cognitively, we're all going to decline. Just some people just decline so much faster than others. And so the rate of the decline, we have quite a bit of control over. So I hope that answers your question, but congratulations. I mean, I wish my mother is 74. I wish she was as active as you are, but what does her son know? Like, why listen? Why listen to anything I have to say? Yes, sir.
I haven't heard your views or your company's views, but what a lot of you said is very good. But social media, television, what's your recommendations?
Oh, that's why it's like, I wish I didn't have a Facebook account. Like, gosh. Yeah, I wish I had my flip phone, honestly. Like, gosh, I mean, I mean, I have it for business, the challenge with all the media stuff is just robs our attention. So when you are with people, you are not really with people, right? And so, if you find yourself being distracted, then you're distracted way too much, but knock it off, right? But my thoughts are exactly that. I can tell you dual task exercising helps people get more focused, because if you're dividing attention between moving and thinking, and at the same time you try to think about, oh, I have to go to the grocery store and I got to buy XYZ growth, you won't be able to complete the task I'm asking you to complete, right? So therefore, it keeps you really honed in and focused. I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I wish I had a flip phone, is what I tell you. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, a lot of people, especially the kids, right? They're all like this. Yeah. Absolutely. Because you got to get constant dings and likes and comments and shares. Yeah, don't even get me started. Yeah. Yes, one more question.
Yeah, okay. I'm one of those persons who has terrible sleeping habits, and I have all my life.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess what I want to find out from you, I have 2 exercise programs that I do once a week, and they happen to be today on Thursday. I have a dance class for 1 hour. There's a half an hour break, and I do chair yoga. Now, but I do it once a week. I want, of course, to do more than that, but my problem at the moment is time and finding to be able to do that. Now, what is more important? And I try to get out and walk. I've never enjoyed walking on my own, so I try to get my son, who is in a really bad place and overweight and is in pain all the time with one thing or another.
That's hard.
And once in a while I can get him out to walk, but most of the time I can't. So I'm finding I'm not getting out to walk like I thought I would. But is it more important for me to get myself on a track where I'm sleeping normally, which has never been, or do I want to more up my exercise? Now, I have found over all these years that even though I get very little sleep, or I've stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning and I only sleep till 9 o'clock and I'm up and going again, I found that I can keep going. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do that.
That's right.
So what is more important?
Yeah, I would say to you this. So I'm going to answer this question. Very interesting. So on our board, we have Dr. Rana Schatz, right? So she's got 5 or 6 neurologists that report to her. They frequently send us clients from UC. One of the things that we talked about, I don't know, probably last month or so for about 90 minutes is sleep. And what she talked about is basically a lot of inflammatory issues, a lot of cognitive challenges, and lack of patience or lack of focus, not being able to process information and remember, all result as a result of inconsistent sleep, right? Now, so if you were my client, what I would do is I would take a look at it. Let's just get some boundaries around sleep as much as possible, right? Let's get a window of when you're willing to go to bed and when you should wake up, whether you like it or not, right? But we just got to get in the rhythm, right, of doing that, right? Because the challenge is you can't exercise with any sort of vigor, right, if you haven't recovered, if you haven't slept. Your brain isn't functioning well, cognitively wise and physically wise. You won't be able to perform well, right? So what I would start is let's get some boundaries around your sleep. And once we are able to somewhat accomplish that, then I would start addressing your physical part of it, right? From a physical perspective, that you want to make sure you're in, because remember, the older we get, here's what happens. National Library of Medicine reports this: since the age 25, our muscle mass declines, our body fat percentages increase, but our physical activity levels roughly stay the same. And what the study talks about is this: gardening or walking the dog or doing daily activities of living just does not do enough to even maintain muscle mass nor maintain certain level body fat percentages, right? And so there has to be a sense of vigor within your physical program, particularly when it comes to strength training. I would do it at least a couple times a week for maybe minimum 25-30 minutes, right? And if you can do some aerobic activity on top of that, that would be ideal, right? But you and I can talk a bit more specifically about your situation. But where I would take a look at your sleep. This is where I would start. I would make sure you have some boundaries around and do what you can, because otherwise you're gonna have a hard time pushing yourself in general. You can push yourself through it, right? But it just won't be as effective.
Well, stress, I've been under an enormous amount of stress for the last 3 years.
Yep.
So, and I try to balance that sometimes, but when you don't get sleep, like I don't get enough sleep,
Yep.
and you're stressed out, and I try meditation, which I do morning calm every morning, but I can't at night, I can't somehow get myself to do meditation.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I've been told or heard, to get yourself breathing differently and go into meditation, and then you can go to sleep. Well,
Potentially. Yeah, that might be a medical thing too, right? If I have a hard time going to sleep, my suggestion is maybe work with a physician that you appreciate, right? And just get some. Maybe it makes sense to do a sleep study, right? There's things that you can do, like getting a certain level of vitamin D will help you reset your circadian rhythm, right? But there could be other challenges, right? But what I'm saying is you got to get some rest, right? Like that's the deal. Otherwise, if you're like, I have a 2-year-old. His name is Hartley. He's a great little boy. But I can tell you that if he gets up 2 hours earlier than he should, okay, but yeah, like I can't, I don't function well. Everything about my resting heart rate is elevated. And I track it all, right? My resting heart rate is elevated the entire day. I'm less patient with people. I crave more food that I normally don't crave. But those are normal responses, right? And that consistently, they could really cause a havoc in your system. Yeah. Quality of sleep. That's right. There's different layers of sleep. That's right. Yeah. There's a lot of strategies. Yeah. So what he's saying is that, before you go to bed, like, what's your routine? Like, what's your rhythm? What's your pattern? Because there is a rhythm, there is a pattern. I've got a rhythm and a pattern when I get up in the morning. What's your rhythm and a pattern when you go to bed at night, right? There needs to be one. Yeah, we do better in rhythms and patterns for sure. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
I like that nutrition.
Yeah.
Right now on TV, all you see is balance of nature, take this pill, take this gummy.
Take this. Yep.
Balance of nature, nutrition.
Yep.
How do you feel about the pills and the gummies that are supposed to be substitutes or enhancements to your nutrition?
Right. It's interesting, right? I'm not a medical professional, so you gotta, I'm at the end of the day, I work in the health and fitness industry, right? So anything medically related, my suggestion is talk to a physician that understands medicine, understands, maybe even supplements or lifestyle. But I will say this to you. Right, there's all sorts of different laboratories or lab work or blood work you can do to find out, are my hormones in check, or is my blood sugar good, is my lipid panel fine. You can do all sorts of CT scans, right, to find out if you have any calcification in your arteries, right? And once you identify all those things, the way you choose to live, how you choose to exercise, or how you choose to eat, certainly makes a massive impact. And so my thought has always been, before you start taking any sort of necessarily supplements like vitamins and such, just get your nutrition straight, right? And work with a physician or maybe a registered dietitian that can help you combine pharmacology along with maybe supplements and lifestyle to help you optimize a living well, right? But there are certainly basics, if you will, when if your hormones, everything is in check, and the formula to weight loss is pretty straightforward. Calories in must be fewer than calories out. I mean, it's that simple. Certainly the types of calories matter, but if anybody's claiming anything more than that, they're snake oil salesmen is what they are. Yes, sir.
Could you talk about the relationship between cognitive reserve and memory?
What's the connection between cognitive reserve and memory? So remember, cognitive reserve is nothing more than a neuroscience concept that says based on how you live your life, right? You can build an account that you can withdraw from to protect your brain against decline, right? Now you're referring to, okay, my maybe short-term memory isn't the greatest. Like, are there things that I can do to work it? Remember, your brain, all it does is constantly rewiring itself based on the environment that you are in. Let me give you an example. If you never took any Spanish lessons, will you ever speak Spanish? Okay. but if you take them at least a couple times a week, right? I mean, odds are you're gonna say something at the end of the month, right? And so what what I'm saying is you can practice memory sort of stuff, right? And so for example, in our facility, like we just put you in a position where you have to remember what is it that you just did. In fact, a lot of the assessing that we do, there's short-term memory sort of stuff. Like one of the assessments that we do, it's called a dual task cost assessment, where you have to hit every other letter on this board, and then once you get to the letter Y, you got to go in reverse order. Can you imagine going doing the alphabet in reverse order? Right, it's challenging. So, but in order for you to do that, you have to remember what letters that you just did to work it. Then, so there's things you can do to practice your working memory, your short-term memory. I can tell you nutritionally and sleep, those two will probably make the greatest impact on our health and on our well-being, not just physically, but cognitively as well, right? That's what I would focus on. But we had a physician come out and do that exact talk. What's the connection between memory and nutrition? It's a very interesting talk. Basically, the cliff notes are: get away from foods that are inflaming your system and causing you to be ill. Right. This is good stuff. Was this helpful, you guys? Yeah, did you pick out some things? Yes? It's great. If you guys have any more questions, you guys know how to get a hold of me. Other than that, thank you guys for coming. Yeah.